Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you with some brief first impressions on the brand new spring 2018 anime series Megalo Box. And I gotta tell you, from right out of the gate, I love this one. It's another example, though, where I watched a couple of different episodes in the last couple of days, and, the first one was Tarakun wa Koi wo Shinai, I think is how it's pronounced. Something like Tarakun won't fall in love is the translation, as well as the first episode for the anime series Comic Girls, a group of, female mangakas sort of in a mangaka-themed dormitory, and they want to grow and evolve their talents and everything like that. They have aspirations to become mangakas and whatever. And both of these first episodes, Tarakun and Comic Girls respectively, were pretty enjoyable to me. In fact, they were lighthearted, they were fun and funny. I laughed out loud through the both of them time and time again, and I really thoroughly enjoyed them. They just didn't strike me as something I really wanted to pour my heart out in a whole video discussing, even if it were a video in brief, that kind of thing. But I did want to footnote that both of these first episodes for these respective series were really highly enjoyable to me, and they will probably be relegated to weekly passive watching just for enjoyment's sake, that kind of thing. But Megalo Box, holy hell, man, this was dope. This was all kinds of badass. Almost, singularly down to the aesthetics overall. The character designs, the animation style. It has this world-weary grit to it, this grittiness to it, and the character designs, everything. It really harkens back to me that sort of golden age of anime, where you had things like Akira and the original Ghost in the Shell 1995 film, Cowboy Bebop, that grittiness, that futuristic element, cybernetics, and in this case, this is a series, much as the title sort of tips the hat, we're talking about sort of mechanized assisted boxing, and I love it. I love the main character from right out of the gate, Junk Dog or JD, sort of downtrodden, sort of having to scrape by as somebody who bows out in fights and makes, the gangsters and whatever like that, the higher up bosses, make their money on his failures and such like that, primping up these other, opponents and such. And he's down on his luck. He's living in a really destitute side of town, just on the outskirts of the big, highfalutin, high society city where people have identification badges and everything like that. And there's this big sort of, I guess you could say, tournament that is being built up, for people who are citizens of that particular rich and well-to-do city, of all ages, races, creeds, all that kind of stuff. This tournament will be, not Mortal Kombat, but basically I think it was like Megalonia, something like that was what it was called, and it's going to be a big, grand, masterful boxing sort of scenario. But he harbors no hopes for having any sort of call to action to participate in this, because he lives in that sort of slum outskirt of the city. He has no identification badge and everything like that. And it's just sort of coincidence or happenstance that he ends up, after taking a bow out in another fight, I think there's two that we see precursor to this sequence toward the latter half of the episode. He's going down like the highway, and he ignores these warning signs saying, the road is closed ahead. And he pretty much runs into the woman whose company, is overseeing the building of this special sort of arena or something like that, where this big Megalonia boxing tournament match thing is going to be unfolding, where it's going to be held. It's still under construction, and that part of the highway is supposed to be cordoned off because, it's a closed road. It's leading right to this place. And JD, Junk Dog, he completely ignores it and almost kills the woman. He almost runs her over on his motorcycle, and just all of the animation, especially the really like up close, face shots and everything like that, with the goggles on him when he's riding his motorcycle, when he's in the ring and he's all in the boxing poses and everything. I have to, put it up front. I'm not that big of a sports fan. I've never been that big of a sports fan. I did have a brief stint where my cousin got me into basketball one year where the Bulls were playing the playoffs, but it was never something I really gravitated toward. Much the same can be said for boxing or fighting, whether that's mixed martial arts or UFC or anything that just sort of emphasizes the brutality of mankind. I don't really have an interest in. I'm more of a lover and an artist and everything like that. And so some people might think it's weird that I would be so drawn and attached to a series that is primarily about boxing. But the thing of it is, I like series from time to time that are competitive. If you look at like a Shokugeki no Soma, which is about cooking, but there is a competitive air to it, that kind of thing, and a learning curve and a growth and an evolution of the characters participating and going up against each other, bounding off of each other. Similarly, I kind of think of Danmachi in a manner of speaking, because the main character, Bel Crannel, he has the whole world sort of up on his shoulders, and he's constantly pushing himself and challenging himself and trying to push forward, picking himself up off the ground when he fails and things like that. And there are stakes. This first episode of Megalo Box really was resounding, for me, with the stakes involved. Here JD, he has to bow out in fights, otherwise he might get into trouble. He might bring trouble down upon his sort of drunkard benefactor, the old man who's constantly, radioing into his ear when he's in the ring and everything like that. Now remember, you gotta sort of stretch it out the first couple of rounds. You're gonna be like the man on top, but then you gotta bow out slowly and gracefully and such like that. And it's just, I really love the grit. I really love the vibe. I love the animation style. All of those hallmarks of classic sort of late 80s, early to mid to late 90s anime aesthetics. Even some of the Gundam series, had that grittiness to it. And the color palette, which is kind of sepia and desert laden and everything like that. But then you're introduced to the big hulking, Yuri guy, this cybernetically enhanced dude who is shiny and metallic and hails from the well-to-do city, everything like that. And it's just, I love the culture clash. I love that aesthetic in the character designs, very sort of simple design for JD, and his mechanized enhancements being, almost like exposed wires and little sheets of pipe and everything like that, as opposed to Yuri, who's like Jax from Mortal Kombat, like Cyborg from DC Comics. They're fully mechanized robotic arms, and they're like, sutured into his chest and all the musculature and everything like that. This seems like a mad exciting series. I like the proposed arc of where JD is bounding for and headed toward and everything. We end off with the cliffhanger that sees him and Yuri. Yuri sniffed him out after the little accident on the highway where he almost killed, Yuri's benefactor, the woman overseeing this whole, Megalonia or whatever it is, tournament to come. And he sniffed JD out. He found him, and I guess this is going to be sort of JD's first waking up into the waking world of actual mechanized boxing, Megalo Box. And I just, it's really stoked me. But I was like, oh, hell yes. This is all kinds of badass. It reminds me so much, it brings up so much nostalgia for some of the first series, anime series that ever really got me attracted to anime to begin with. And I can really highly see being invested in this one. I don't know if I'm going to be covering it in episodic discussions. There's still, as of the time of this recording, a bunch of stuff that I want to check out, first episodes that are going to be debuting over the next week and a half, as of the time of this recording. So it remains to be seen. I'll sort of relegate it to, let's see how I feel after episode 2, as to whether or not I come back on to talk about it. But I couldn't be more stoked. I couldn't be more excited with this one, and it is almost singularly down to the aesthetics, to the character designs, to the overall look and style of the piece. You know, it seems like all kinds of badass, much like Garrow Vanishing Line was in the previous season. And so yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've seen episode 1 of Megalo Box, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you were as stoked by it as I was, if it harkens back to some, you know, that classic anime that you might have, it might have been some of your first experiences with anime as it was for me and such like that, and some that have proven to be all-time classics. Again, like I say, name-checking Akira and Ghost in the Shell and Cowboy Bebop, even Samurai Champloo a little bit. And I love the character design of JD, where he's got the big plume of hair a la Mugen from Champloo or Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, and then when they show him from the front, he's got like male pattern baldness, you know, a big swath of hair that's missing. But it looks all kinds of awesome, and I had a blast watching it. And so yeah, otherwise it'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.